Are you thinking of getting the Polestar 4? Wait, don't make a decision just yet. Because what if the most beautiful EV you've seen hides a few surprises behind the wheel? You're about to hear real stories, real experiences, and brutally honest opinions from actual Polestar 4 owners. Some love it, some regret it, and some are stuck in the middle, wondering if they made the right call. So, what's the truth? Let's start with what got most people hooked, the design. Many owners called the Polestar for the best-looking EV in the market. One driver even said it was the car that made him feel excited to drive again. The sleek lines, futuristic LED tail, and bold front end. It's turning heads in every direction. And if you're eyeing that electron color, you're not alone. It's the favorite among those lucky enough to get one, especially in Australia where it's just starting to hit the roads. But here's where things get interesting. Beauty isn't everything, and some early adopters hit bumps. Literally. One driver described hitting speed bumps as harsh shocks, comparing it unfavorably to cheaper EVs like the Skoda Enyaq, which they said handled better over rough roads. And that's not all. The throttle, something as basic as accelerating, felt oddly stiff to some testers when not using adaptive cruise control. That's a red flag for a car in this price range. But then again, others strongly disagree. Several owners described a ride as smooth and quiet, especially praising the build quality and cabin silence. The interior is often praised for being premium, solid, and minimal without feeling cheap. So, how can the same car feel totally different to different drivers? Could it be the test car setups, software versions, or are expectations just that different? Please subscribe to my channel if you like real automotive contents. Speaking of software, this is where many people pause and think twice. Early software versions of the Polestar 4 were filled with bugs. Autopilot features were clunky, battery preconditioning didn't work properly, and even phone charging was glitchy on some Android models. One user said their S23 Plus wouldn't charge wirelessly unless flipped 180 degrees. That's not ideal. But here's the twist, software updates are already fixing a lot of it. The latest patch, version 4.2.1, made big improvements to pilot assist and adaptive cruise control. Owners who were frustrated in December are now reporting smoother drives in June. One driver said the issues with the wireless charger were fully resolved after the update. That's good news. But here's the catch. Not everyone receives updates at the same time. Some are still waiting for 4.2.2 months later, staring at the same old bugs and wondering when their turn will come. So, should you buy a car with the hope that future software will fix today's problems? That's a big question, and it's the one every Polestar 4 owner had to ask themselves. But let's not skip the essentials. Range? Owners are impressed. A few even did 700-kilometer road trips and only needed one charge. That's serious real-world range, not just brochure promises. And with apps like Mayo in Portugal or a better route planner in other regions, most users say charging infrastructure isn't the issue anymore. So long trips? Totally doable. Still, not everything is perfect on the road. One of the most common complaints was the advanced driver assist systems, especially the autopilot. Some drivers said it's not as refined as Tesla, even a little jumpy when trying to stay centered on the highway. Others say it disengages randomly or resists when you try to steer it manually. For a premium car, that's unsettling. One driver called it annoying but not dangerous, while another just turned it off completely and drove old school. And let's talk about that rear window or lack of it. Some people love the camera-based rear view mirror. Others hate it. One new owner said reversing into tight parking spots was nerve-wracking. Another who regularly tows a trailer said the missing rear glass was a deal breaker. That's a pretty bold design choice for a mass-market car, and not everyone is on board. And then there's the family factor. What if you've got kids? Baby seats? Groceries? One owner asked about child seat fitment, and another reassured them. It's spacious and low to the ground, not too raised. But what about the long-term durability of the interior? One user worried about stains on the recycled mist-knit seats. Another reassured them with a real-world test, spilled milk cleaned off easily with soap and water. Still, for long-term use, a steam clean might be necessary. So practical? Yes. But low maintenance? Not quite. And it doesn't stop there. What if you buy the car now, and the brand doesn't survive? Some drivers are openly worried about Polestar's future, especially with news about Volvo reducing investment and US laws complicating Chinese-made EV imports. But others are confident. They point out that Geely, the same company behind Lotus and Zeekr, owns Polestar, and they're pouring money into expansion, not retreat. One owner in Brisbane even said their local customer service was excellent. So, what do we make of all this? Well, the Polestar 4 is a paradox. It's stunning, futuristic, powerful, and imperfect. It drives beautifully for some, but not all. It has tech that works, eventually. It's premium in feel, but lacks polish in places. The rear camera might make you feel like you're piloting a spaceship, but also miss your good old mirror. It's not a car for everyone, but for the right person, it might be the most exciting EV on the market right now. So now, I'll ask you, is that enough to sway you? Or will the software bugs and bold design choices send you running back to Tesla or Skoda? Because the Polestar 4 might just be the best electric car you'll ever regret not buying, or the one you'll return in 30 days wondering what all the hype was about. And that, my friend, is exactly why you should test drive it before making any decision. Is the Polestar 4 really the EV that'll make you forget about Tesla? Or is it just another overhyped electric car with sleek looks and disappointing software? Let's get into what real owners are actually saying, and trust me, some of these surprises will flip your expectations upside down. A lot of people are curious about the Polestar 4. It looks stunning, has a modern interior, and on paper, it seems like a top-tier electric car. But as one user pointed out, car fantastic, software rubbish. Ouch, that sounds harsh, but don't jump to conclusions just yet. Some new owners actually call it the best-looking EV in the market and say it drives like a dream. In fact, one person said they haven't had that much fun since test driving a Polestar 2. But here's the twist. Others who test drove the Polestar 4 came away with mixed feelings. One Redditor noted that the ride felt harsh over bumps, even compared to cheaper EVs like the Skoda Enyaq. They also said the throttle felt weirdly stiff without adaptive cruise control active. That's not something you expect from a premium EV with a strong design presence. So, what's really going on here? Is it all just early software glitches? Is the hype hiding serious flaws? Well, according to one user, Polestar has already rolled out 2 updates to fix major bugs. The biggest remaining issue? The car can't precondition the battery before reaching a charger, which limits how fast it can charge. A fix is on the way, but this is something to think about if you do a lot of long-distance trips. And here's something unexpected. Owners are reporting issues with the smart, keyless entry system. One user nearly pinched their fingers trying to open the handle when it glitched. Others say adaptive cruise control, ACC, randomly cancels itself or refuses to turn on, annoying for road trips, though not always dangerous. But not everyone's complaining. Some drivers say their experience has been great, with smooth OTA updates, strong build quality, and excellent interior quietness that makes the Harman Kardon sound system shine. They love the Android Automotive UI, calling it far better than what Lexus offers. So far, what we're seeing is a car with incredible potential, but very uneven execution depending on your experience and your expectations. And yes, the lack of a rear window keeps coming up again and again. Next up, what do people really think about the rear view camera replacing the back window? Is it futuristic genius or just a safety risk waiting to happen? So here's the real curveball. There's no rear window in the Polestar 4. That's right, zero. Nada. Gone. Instead, you get a digital rear view camera display. Sounds cool and futuristic, right? But real owners? They're split down the middle. Some say it's actually better, offering crystal clear visibility even in low light. One owner shared how the digital mirror gave them a wider, cleaner view than they'd ever get from glass. It felt like an upgrade until it didn't, because for others, it's been a total headache. One driver called the camera a pain when backing into a parking space, especially at night or in the rain. Another warned about relying too much on the tech. What if the camera glitches? What if it fails? There's no physical backup. And that's not just a what if. Several owners from the Polestar 2 community said their reverse cameras just stopped working completely for months. One even said 6 months later, their camera still hadn't been fixed. That raises a big red flag when you're in a car that doesn't have a rear window. If you're pulling a trailer or doing tight urban parking, you're completely dependent on tech working 100% of the time. Now, here's the part most new buyers don't realize. You can't just opt out of the digital mirror. It's part of the design. One curious shopper even asked, "Do you like rear windows?" sarcastically. It sounds funny until you think about safety, reliability, and confidence when driving. No matter how advanced the tech, some people simply don't want to lose basic features like rear glass. But that's not the only tech feature under fire. The lane keeping assist and adaptive cruise control, two major pieces of the semi-autonomous system, are getting complaints for being buggy and unpredictable. Multiple owners describe the steering twitching left and right when using autopilot features on highways. In some cases, the system canceled itself out of nowhere with no explanation. Not dangerous necessarily, but not something you want to worry about on long drives. One driver summed it up perfectly. It's great when it works, but when it doesn't, you really notice. And get this, some are turning the features off entirely because they're tired of the beeping alerts, false speed warnings, and inconsistent performance. Not what you expect in a car aiming to compete with the Tesla Model Y or Mercedes EQ crossover lineup. But there's another angle to all this. Some of these annoyances are mandated by EU laws, not Polestar itself. For example, that annoying beeping every time the speed limit changes, that's from the Intelligent Speed Assist ISA system required in EU markets. The good news? Drivers say you can turn it off with one button, the left arrow on the steering wheel, every time you start the car. The bad news? You have to do it every single time. Still, for many, these issues are trade-offs they're willing to accept. Why? Because the Polestar 4 offers something rare. It feels new, bold, and exciting in a sea of cookie-cutter EVs. And while the lack of a rear window is shocking at first, some owners say they don't even notice it anymore after a few days. In their words, it's a device, and once you learn how to set it up, it just works. Coming up, let's talk software, crashes, missing features, updates, and why some owners are still riding with Android 4G when the car is supposed to support 5G. You'll want to hear this. Now, let's talk about the brain of the Polestar 4, the software. Because while the design turns heads, the tech under the hood has been raising eyebrows for a different reason. And no, it's not just one or two bugs. It's a whole mix of things that leave some owners frustrated and others cautiously hopeful. Let's start with what everyone expected. Smooth Android automotive integration, fast 5G connectivity, over-the-air OTA, updates, and snappy performance across the board. Sounds great on paper, but in reality, many are still stuck on 4G, even though their cars are supposed to be 5G ready. One owner asked a simple question, "Do you ever get 5G signal?" And the answer from several others? A solid no. The signal just won't switch, even in cities with full 5G coverage. Another buyer said their dealer promised 5G would be available out of the box. 6 months later, it's still 4G only. And that leads to even bigger confusion. After the first 3 years, you might have to pay for the 5G subscription yourself. One dealership estimated the cost could be around $12 a month, but no one knows for sure. And in some regions like Europe, Polestar 2 owners have passed the 3-year mark without getting charged, so it's a total question mark. Some are wondering if it'll stay free or if the bills are coming. Now let's talk bugs. Real ones. Some of the most annoying software quirks are with basic, everyday features, like adaptive cruise control, ACC, randomly turning off, or lane assist bouncing the car between lines like it's confused. One owner even said when they tried to manually correct the steering, the system would resist, then suddenly disengage with a jolt. And yes, this was on the highway. Another user found the speed sign recognition to be not just unreliable, but always wrong. One said, "The warnings pop up even when I'm under the limit and I can't turn them off. That gets tiring fast." Then there's the issue with wireless charging, something that should be effortless. But several drivers with Samsung or Pixel phones reported that the charger just doesn't work unless you flip the phone upside down. Others said the issue was only fixed after a major software update, version 4.2.1, which took weeks to roll out. And even then, not all units receive it right away. The Android automotive system is another mixed bag. Some love it, saying it's better than any infotainment they've used. But others, they're missing apps they expected. One even wished they could run Android Auto itself just to get their favorite apps back. And while Apple users have CarPlay, Android users are stuck with what's preloaded. Even the Polestar mobile app has its own quirks. One user asked, "Does the app work consistently for remote functions?" Luckily, most replied yes. But even so, the experience varies between iOS and Android, and features like digital keys are only available in some regions. Europe, not Australia, for example. And then there's the elephant in the room, updates. Yes, Polestar is pushing out OTA updates. Version 4.2.2 brought smoother pilot assist and fixed some bugs, but rollout has been painfully slow. Some owners saw notifications in their app for the new version, but it still hadn't appeared in the car days later. Others say it solved charging issues, improved steering, and finally stopped random disconnects with the app. But not everyone got it, and not everyone knows how to check. You might be wondering, is this really that bad? Well, for some, yes. One frustrated buyer canceled their Polestar 4 order after realizing the software was too inconsistent, the camera too risky, and the garage too tight. For them, the missing features weren't just inconvenient, they were deal breakers. But others, they say none of it matters. "It drives like a dream," one wrote. Another said, "I've never had so much fun in an EV since the Polestar 2. One even compared it to switching from a Lexus to a spaceship. The truth? The Polestar 4 is a bold, futuristic car. But that future still has a few bugs to fix. Coming next, let's explore what it's like actually living with this car every day. Road trips, range confidence, baby seats, and the one feature that made one man's wife demand the keys back. You don't want to miss this. So, what's it actually like to live with the Polestar 4? Not just test drive it for 20 minutes, but to drive it every day. Park it at home, fit the family inside, and rely on it on long road trips? Turns out the real-world experience is just as fascinating and complicated as the car itself. Let's start with comfort. One owner described their 700 km road trip through Australia and said they only needed one charge the whole way. That kind of range confidence is rare. It's not just range either. The car's build quality and interior silence impressed drivers coming from Teslas and even premium brands like Lexus. The cabin is almost silent, one user shared. Perfect environment for the Harman Kardon sound system. But it's not all silence and serenity. Another owner pointed out that while the car is gorgeous inside, the suspension feels stiff over speed bumps. They weren't the only one. Several people noted that you feel every dip and bump, especially in urban driving. Someone even said, it felt harsher than a Skoda Enyaq, which costs much less. That leads to one of the biggest surprises. It's a wide car. So wide, in fact, one owner had to cancel their order after realizing it didn't fit comfortably in their garage next to a Model Y. That's a real problem if you live in tighter city spaces. And speaking of the garage, there's one missing feature people keep talking about, the rear window. Yes, the Polestar 4 has no rear glass. Instead, it uses a digital rear view mirror linked to a camera. Some owners say it's fine, even better than traditional mirrors. But others say it's hard to get used to, especially when reversing into tight spots or parking with a trailer. If you're the kind of driver who depends on a real rear view, this could be a deal breaker. One owner was even asked if they'd tried baby car seats in the back. While they hadn't personally tested it, they said the rear is roomy and spacious, and the seats don't feel too high or difficult to access. So, while the sloped roof might suggest otherwise, it seems family use isn't off the table. Let's talk about relationships for a moment, because one owner said their biggest problem wasn't the car, it was their wife. Apparently, he loved the Polestar 4's performance so much he drove it a little too aggressively, and now she wants to drive it instead. She doesn't trust him with it anymore. That's the kind of problem most people don't mind having. But it's not just about power and speed. People are also learning to adjust to the car's quirks, like the mist-tailored knit upholstery. One user asked if it would hold up over time or get dirty easily. The response? It's made from recycled plastic, and early impressions suggest it's surprisingly durable. Milk spilled on it, wiped up easily with warm, soapy water. Long-term, a professional steam clean might be all it needs to look fresh again. Let's not forget tech. The remote app functions like locking and charging status. Most users say they work well, both on iPhone and Android. But like everything with the Polestar, it can depend on your region and your luck. Even road presence has its perks. The Polestar 4 turns heads, people stop and ask about it. The design is sharp, futuristic, and clean. One person said if they had to choose between the Polestar and the Model 3, it's the design and cabin experience that swayed them to the Polestar side, even if the Tesla's faster off the line. But here's the twist. Some people test drove it and just didn't connect. One said the pedal felt stiff, the ride was too rough over urban bumps, and they just weren't impressed for the price. So they walked away. That's what makes the Polestar 4 such a fascinating car. It's not for everyone. But for those who connect with it, it becomes more than just transportation. It becomes a conversation starter, a family debate, and sometimes a reason to fight over who gets the keys next. In our final section, we're going deeper. What happens after you buy the Polestar 4? How does customer service handle problems? What about future software updates? And is Polestar even a safe brand to invest in long term? The answers might surprise you. Buying a Polestar 4 isn't just about driving off the lot. It's about trusting a new EV brand with your time, money, and daily convenience. And for some buyers, that trust is still being tested. Let's start with the elephant in the room: software. Owners didn't hold back. The biggest complaint wasn't about the drive or even the missing rear window, it was about software glitches. Things like adaptive cruise control, ACC, randomly disengaging, lane assist pulling too hard or feeling jittery, or even the key fob not being recognized, causing doors not to unlock when expected. One user described a near finger squash moment when the handle popped in too quickly after trying to manually unlock the door. That's not just annoying, it's scary. And while updates have improved some of these things like version 4.2.1 fixing charging pad issues and refining pilot assist, the truth is Polestar software is still a work in progress. Want another example? The digital key feature mentioned in the manual? One owner excitedly searched for it, only to find out it was only available in European cars. Confusion like that adds to the frustration. Even things like adjusting the cruise control speed by 1 km/h, which are documented features, sometimes just don't work. And yet, the company does respond. Owners mentioned that updates do arrive, albeit slowly. Some have already received version 4.2.2 and noticed more refinements. But others, months later, are still waiting. One said, "The app told me it's available, but it still hasn't downloaded in the car." So yes, software gets better, but not always consistently. Now, what happens if things go wrong? One P2 owner mentioned their reverse camera stopped working 6 months ago, and it still hasn't been fixed. That might be less of an issue on a car with a rear window, but on a Polestar 4, that's your only view behind the car. And here's where the conversation gets real. When you buy a Polestar 4, you're buying into a brand that's still building its systems, its support teams, and its dealer network. Some owners in places like Brisbane, Australia, say customer service is great. Others feel left behind. So is Polestar safe long-term? Some owners pointed out that the brand is owned by Geely, the same Chinese company behind Volvo and Lotus, and now launching Zeekr. So, the money is there. Polestar isn't disappearing tomorrow. But others worry, especially after news that Volvo is stepping back and the US might impose import restrictions on some Chinese-connected brands. That has potential buyers asking, will I still get updates? Will service centers still exist? Will my resale value collapse? One Redditor summed it up well. I don't want a smart car that goes bankrupt and leaves me with crap software and no support. But here's the thing, no EV is perfect. One user nailed it. You simply can't get a perfect car in today's EV world. And that's true. Teslas have phantom braking. Volkswagens get stuck in update loops. Even luxury EVs struggle with software. What sets Polestar apart is its design, driving feel, and quiet confidence. It's not the fastest. It's not the most feature-rich. But it's undeniably one of the best-looking, most premium-feeling EVs out there right now. So should you get one? Only if you're okay living with some quirks. Only if you're not expecting Tesla-level tech maturity yet. But if you want something different, something bold, something that turns heads and feels uniquely yours, then yes, the Polestar 4 might just be the EV that surprises you in all the right ways.